It's been a long time since I've enjoyed a movie this thoroughly, and then it just drops a deuce on you there.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined by Barrett Scher from Music Video Sins.
Hello!
And Jonathan Watkins, also from all the other things that we do.
Hello, hello.
And today we're going to be doing a mini-pod.
Shiny pod?
Sleepy pod.
Sleepy pod. There you go. Steamy pod?
Ooh, steamy pod. That sounds vaguely pornographic.
Rebecca Fergie pod? I don't know.
Yeah, well, it could be. Could be. We are doing a mini pod of Dr. Sleep today. Directed by Mike Flanagan of House on Haunted Hill on Netflix fame.
Yeah.
He's also done a couple other movies like Oculus.
He did Gerald's Game, the Stephen King adaptation. He actually did a surprisingly good sequel to the first Ouija movie.
Yeah.
It's called Ouija Origin of Evil.
I still don't think I've seen that.
I mean, it's not a classic, but...
And then he did Before I Wake. Have you ever seen that?
I have. That's pretty good. My favorite of his is probably Hush, which was a Netflix original.
Another movie called Hush.
Yeah, but a good one.
Yeah.
With that stars his wife, whose name escapes me. She was in House on Haunted Hill too.
Yeah.
Kate Siegel. Yeah, Kate Siegel.
Dr. Sleep is the sequel to The Shining. And I didn't even know that Stephen King had written a book. When I saw the Dr. Sleep trailers, I was like, oh, I guess they just went ahead and just made a sequel.
Yeah, it's like 2013, I believe, something like that. Yeah,
but apparently people really like Dr. Sleep, the book. They really like it.
I've heard both. I know our friend Dave Irwin. He's a big fan of the book because he saw this with us last night. And he was really concerned going in because he liked the book so much. I've also heard people say it's one of King's worst books. So that one seems to be kind of all over the map. I would say general consensus is that it's good.
I'm going to say right off the bat that I thought this was an A- movie.
Awesome.
Right until about 30 minutes left.
Yeah, me too.
I was loving this movie.
Me too.
I was bathing in it. I was like, this is my movie right here. We finally found each other. I'm going to marry this thing.
We may have had the exact same thought at the exact same time. There's a point where they're traveling on the road, and and it's a nice quiet place in the movie where you can reflect on what has happened before. At that moment, I was like, this is a really good movie.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the movie happened.
I know.
I thought it was solid all the way through. I'm not gonna say that I'm way different than you guys on the last 30 minutes or whatever. I assume that's what you're talking about, which we'll get into in spoilers. But I think I liked more of that than you did. That's my guess, just based on what you just said. But
I would say so, because I don't think I liked it much at all, that last 30 minutes. Maybe some parts of it I did.
I think a lot of it has to do, for me, what I liked was Flanagan. I like the way he shot a lot of that.
How do you mean? Here's the reason that I asked that. Is that at the beginning of the movie, it flashes back to Danny Torrance as a kid riding his big wheel through the hotel.
Did not like that part.
Okay, well, I'll ask why in a second, but what he does is he refilms this iconic journey over the carpet onto the hardwood and all that stuff. Still has the sound, still has the tracking shot, but it's as different as the Kubrick version as you could get.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's the shot, but it's not the shot.
Yeah.
I bet you that was intentional. But it's just odd that you would do it so close to the original, but also like the camera's off to the side a little bit, and it's not really steady camming the whole time. The sound's a little bit different. Obviously, it's a different kid. Anyway, what did you not like about that? Was it the same thing?
If I go back and watch it again, maybe it will be better. But that's the beginning of the movie, and it just felt odd because it just felt a little off, right? Because it's not the same. It's a different character playing the kid. It's a different character playing the mom. Although she's doing like a freaking
Shelley Duvall,
Yeah,
she's
Shelley-
actually doing
yeah,
pretty well.
Doing a pretty good Shelley Duvall.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And both performers are good, and there are some moments in the non recreation moments in that towards the end of that beginning sequence. I did dig, like I liked that, like how he figured out what he needed to do to escape, what was going on at that time. Not to get too deep into it, but yeah, it was just an odd way to start because it just felt like. But I got to give Flanagan credit, man. He does it. Like, I mean, they could have definitely, I don't know if there was a rights issue or something, or he just didn't want to. But I mean, obviously, they could have just used footage. I mean, they could have. I mean, I've got just a Blu-ray copy that looks like it just got filmed today.
I think the reason why they did it that way is because they had some extra things that they didn't shoot in The Shining.
True.
That they wanted to put in. We didn't ever see the door open and the hag come out in the original Shining.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff like that. Like, I feel like he could have just done that and just shown footage, but then all you're doing is showing footage, and then you have to kind of like find some creative way to get something else in there that isn't from the Kubrick
True story. Or maybe they could have figured out a way to leave that out and do something different. But I just, like I said, I personally, I mean, I may have watched more of his stuff than you guys have. I think I've watched everything he's done. I really like Flanagan, and that's one thing about this movie that excites me is that he's getting to do something a lot. I mean, he's done some fairly large projects, but most of them have been Netflix, and they've been very popular. But this is really his first like huge, like big screen. I mean, I would say like Oculus and Ouija: Origin of Evil. Those were theatrical releases, but they're not on the scale of this. Even if I don't know what the budgets were, but I'm just saying they're not on the scale as far as getting this wide of a release, getting this much marketing and media attention. So I'm really hoping this kind of shoots him off in a direction that we're all going to be watching a lot of Mike Flanagan movies.
I'm sure we
forward.
are.
Yeah. Did you guys like his direction in this?
Oh yeah.
No, like I said right off the bat, I loved everything about this movie until it got to the ending.
I hear you.
And I was about to say this is an A, but I was also worried because I was like, I've seen 2 hours of a movie and I know that there's 30 minutes left.
Yeah.
And I was a little worried, and then and my worries were confirmed.
Well, and I will say I was never at an A, so that also could affect my feelings towards the end because I was not at the level I think you two were at going into the end. So that also probably factors in.
All right. Well, what's your grade?
Oh man. I mean, you have to say, without going into spoilers, like the three leads, I guess, Ewan McGregor and Rebecca Ferguson as a delicious villain.
Yes.
And the girl who's played by Kylie Curran, does that sound right?
Sounds right to me.
Who plays Abra, the girl who's kind of like the heir apparent, is absolutely just kills it.
Yeah. Now, Dave Irwin did not like her. For some reason.
Maybe there's a big difference in her character versus the book.
It could be. I don't know. He thought she had some typical child acting, wooden capability, like wooden type of things that were affecting the performance.
And we should say Dave is an actor. Like, he's acted quite a bit, so he could be. Well, Chris has too, I guess. So, but he could be looking at this a little differently.
I think we've all acted, but
that's true.
Dave has probably acted way more than we have.
Yes, it was a child character and a child actor, but
I didn't get that sense myself.
I didn't either, and she was so ebullient, and even in the face of all this awfulness, she brought a brightness and a cheeriness to the whole movie, and I think that was within character.
Yeah,
Ewan McGregor was great, and then Rebecca Ferguson is probably my favorite part of this whole movie.
Dave was supposed to be here, so we're just shitting on him.
I know. Well, I think the important thing is that I agree with you about the child actor though. That just fuck Dave. I mean, what
exactly.
An idiot.
Yeah, when he hears this,
Dave.
I hope he hears this. In fact, he'll
listen.
finally know what I think about that motherfucker.
I think ultimately I would settle on in between a B- and a B I just want to lop off that last bit.
Yeah.
So you were with Chris though. Like if that last 30 minutes was more what you wanted, you'd probably be like in the A range.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm in B minus territory. I definitely was not anywhere near A this entire movie. I think this movie, there are parts I really like. There are parts that I'm like, eh. So there's definitely, I liked more than I didn't. So there's enough here to recommend. Going on Rebecca Ferguson though, I hate like in general making comments like this, but I think in a few years we're going to look back on that and say she was one of the best horror villains we've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to be surprised because she really is very effective. Like she's, and I'm trying to remember even the last time I've seen a villain that like I've been that like intrigued by, terrified by, like I just that meaty of a role. I mean I guess you could say Pennywise or something, but I'm just saying in general, like I'm trying to think of someone, and especially the performance, and I just thought she was just unbelievable. Ewan McGregor's very good. Ewan McGregor, I've thought about his performance keeps coming back to me. There's a lot more going on there than I kind of gave him credit for when I first watched it. I think the way they handle, which this is a big thing in the first movie, I think the way they handle recovery is really interesting, especially for a movie that didn't have to do that. I thought it was interesting that they did that, and so I like the performances. There were quite a few scenes that I enjoyed. There were quite a few that I was like, eh. So I'm kind of, I'm going to say B minus for now. Could definitely go up on future viewings.
The last 30 minutes lopped up an entire letter grade. I'm B. I'm at a B for this. I don't think I've experienced that in a long
like Whiplash.
time. Where
I'm trying to think.
It's been a long time since I've enjoyed a movie this thoroughly, and then it just drops a deuce on you there. I mean, maybe that's going over the line. It's not nearly as bad as I'm saying it is, but it is something that it doesn't fit the rest of this movie.
That's the thing. It's a different movie at the end, and it's for a reason. I understand why it's there. I understand why it's there practically, not story-wise. It doesn't fit into the story. It doesn't fit into the movie. The characters, like all that stuff is very, very different from the rest of it. And it's so different that I'm not on board.
Yeah. Let's go on to spoilers, because we really need to get to that to really discuss this movie and everything.
Kevin Spacey is Kaiser Soze.
Luke's father is actually Darth Vader. She's the sister and the daughter. They just
No. I'm reading the books.
Rebecca Ferguson. In fact, when you brought up Pennywise, I was like, "Fuck Pennywise."
Yeah. I think Rebecca Ferguson. I think she would eat him alive.
Yeah.
What was her name in the movie? I forgot.
She's Rose the Hat.
Yeah, Rose the Hat. That's right.
There's something. It's been a long time since I've seen a movie that is, I'm not saying the movie is, maybe the portrayal of evil is so strong in this movie. And I guess it's hard not to be when your main villains are child killers. But the seduction of these children, getting them into these places or whatever is just, gives you this icky, yucky feeling. And she's the whole time, Rebecca Ferguson's got this like very like motherly, calm to her, and this like, look at these flowers. These flowers are amazing, aren't they? And doing all this stuff that people do when they're entertaining kids. And meanwhile, they've got these hungry other assholes ready to jump on them and jump on these kids and like take their steam, which is their energy source or whatever. You brought up the thing about addiction and recovery and all that type of stuff. I feel like he's king, maybe in the original book, and this movie is doing that with these villains as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of their drug, is this
Oh, yeah.
steam, and they're addicted to it, and if they don't have it, then they die. It's sort of I think it's pretty much that on the nose, right?
There's also, and I mean, I don't know anything about Flanagan's personal life other than he's married to Katie Siegel, but I will say Haunting of Hill House also has a character, a pretty big storyline in it that's really well handled, that involves recovery from addiction, from drug addiction and whatnot. So I know that's definitely a topic he's explored before and has done very well. So
yeah, that's good. You know, I mean, a lot of this stuff, we're in spoilers. A lot of this stuff seems like almost a makeup for the Shining, because in the original Shining book, there was a big arc about the recovery of Jack Torrance that was touched upon in the movie. And, you know, touched upon fairly well. I mean, he's got the scene with Lloyd at the bar and all that stuff. But like you said, this is a much more nuanced, much more like character-driven recovery story, so that when you do get that, that's one of the scenes that I did love at the end of the movie, was the scene with quote Lloyd at the bar, where it's a very, what I would expect, a very realistic depiction of addiction and recovery, and you see his downs and his ups, and where he's almost putting the drink to his lips and everything. That's some real shit right there. And you know, King gave Kubrick, among other things, a lot of shit for not really going into that, and this is kind of like a little bit of like, here's what the story that we were actually going to tell, except through a proxy of Danny instead of Jack.
Yeah, that's a good point. I recently rewatched The Shining, and I recently reread The Shining. So I had both of those in mind. And I will say, I love both the book and the movie of The Shining.
No,
I do
not
think,
allowed. Not allowed.
Huh?
It's not allowed.
But I do think they're very different. And the main thing I think is that, because even though The Shining, I don't want to get too far off tangent, sorry, but even though The Shining the movie has a lot of actions that happen in the book, it's just so different thematically. It just completely, and the Jack Torrance character is a big part of that, because in the movie, he's just like a huge piece of shit from the get-go. Like, just that one of those first scenes where she's feeding him breakfast in bed, and he's just being a dick to her. In the book, well, he just seems he seems annoyed by her.
Yeah.
In the book, it's a lot more gradual. At the beginning of the book, he's very much trying to make up for his past wrongs, and that has to do with his alcohol recovery. So yeah, and I do think they actually do touch on that. And I've seen a lot of takes of people saying that they feel like this is in some ways an apology to.
I think so.
To lovers of the book, The Shining, because I've heard a lot of people say it works both as a sequel to the movie and the book.
Yeah.
And it kind of does.
Yeah.
You know, so that is a really interesting take.
Yeah. And even the very end is a makeup of sorts to the movie versus the book.
Yeah. But I just kept thinking during this, man, this movie is just evil, man. It's just so much evil going on. The surprise Jacob Tremblay part that's in the middle.
Sudden Jacob Tremblay.
Yeah. It comes in, and he's a little leaguer who, you know, people in the stands are saying, he seems to know what the pitcher's throwing before they even throw it and all that, which, you know, I have a lot to pick about that. But anyway,
so he was a cheater.
That'll be for the Sims video. I'll have a rant about the whole knowing what's coming and still being awesome thing. He's I don't understand the actual, like, what happens here. He plays his game, and then he has to walk home
through a fucking cornfield.
Yeah, that was odd. That was odd.
And then
he's like on a highway or something. It was weird.
Yeah, and then these guys, the Rebecca Ferguson led, ice cream truck people, whatever, come up and come up and do the whole like, come in the van. We got
candy.
Yeah, we can take you home. It's you don't have to walk and all that. And but yeah, that's the thing about this movie, that it explores more of these kids who have The Shining and everything. They briefly mention it in the original Shining movie, at least. I read the book a long time ago, so I don't remember if they did that whole thing where Scatman Crothers is saying, well, there's people out there who shine. They just don't know it and all that. This one is actually, basically doing it. Rebecca Ferguson is in some ways like Charles Xavier, except evil.
Yeah, yeah.
She's
exactly right.
She's sort of like figuring out where all these kids who shine are, and
they're kind of like vampires. Like, I mean, they're basically vampires that eat, instead of blood, they suck the shine out of you, which they call steam.
Yeah.
And they're like, because they're like a pack too. In fact, the one movie that this not the movie itself didn't remind me of, but that group of the Rebecca Ferguson's crew, whatever you want to call them, Shine Stealers, that reminded me of Near Dark.
Oh, I thought you were about to say Lost Boys, because that was something.
Sure.
Kiefer Sutherland had that.
Yeah.
No, but Near Dark, I mean, they're very much more punk rock type vampires and stuff, but they definitely had that kind of, it was a group and they traveled together.
For sure, Near Dark. That's
Yeah.
a good comparison, for sure. Absolutely.
And which was really cool, because I hadn't really seen like a vampire scenario like that really since Near Dark. So there was like that moment where they this is farther in the movie, but when they get to the park and they think that the main girl is there, Abra, was that her name? When they think Abra's sitting on that picnic table, and they're all approaching her, that's where I really got that. Oh, this is very Near Dark. That's where I got that. That's where I got that feel.
Yeah,
which was really cool. And that whole group of people, by the way, is really cool. I mean, Ferguson is the main one. But the young actress,
Emily Allen Lind plays the one that they recruit.
Yeah, she's
like
she's a pusher, is what they call. Like, she can get people to do things.
Yeah,
and
she'll say, "You need to go to sleep now," or "Hey, you need to give me that now," and everything. And they go around. They've obviously been tracking her for a long time, and apparently, like, there's the point where the dude, and I can't remember what that dude's name was. Was it Crow Daddy?
Yeah,
yes.
Crow Daddy.
Played by Zahn McClarnon. He's like, I've seen her do this 6 times. Basically just luring men into theaters and then doing the whole like hard candy shit with them. And
oh yeah, that was a really good scene. That's like, there's so many
candy thing.
There's so many great scenes like that. I just, for some reason, there were just parts in this where I wasn't as invested for whatever reason. But then you'd have a scene, but now we're talking about it. It's like, that scene's amazing. The Jacob Tremblay scene, which you started talking about, but like, that is just terrifying.
Yeah.
When they finally get to the...
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That was just... There are moments of pure evil in this. I've seen movies with demons and like, all sorts of murder and all sorts. This felt way worse for me.
Well, and especially because it's mainstream. That's another thing. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that's the only reason. I'm saying you really don't see this a lot in wide release films like this.
No. And then them digging him up.
Oh yeah,
he's just in the dirt.
Yeah.
And
we say Sudden Tremblay, but I'm really glad they cast someone of his caliber, because I think in some situations that would take you out of the movie. But I actually thought we know he's a good actor, and I thought he was very good in the scene where they're taking his essence away from him or whatever.
Great. Like to see him in a role where he's not traumatized.
Right?
Well, I know. I was thinking, like, oh my God, it's like Room 2, or
it's like Sophia Lillis. Like every role that she's got has to be something.
And even like the Predator. I mean, he's being chased by fucking predators for 2 hours.
Put him in a Hardy Boys.
So we have a lot of things.
He's in Wonder.
We have a lot of things going on in this movie. So you have Danny Torrance, who's now just Dan Torrance.
Mm-hmm.
He is
Uncle Dan.
Yeah, he is. Ewan McGregor is playing this guy who has basically going through the cycle, right, where he had an alcoholic, abusive father, and now he's turning into like this big drug addict and everything.
Yeah.
He's actually getting to the point where he's like stealing money out of wallets, and that's where we see Carl Lumbly playing the Scatman Carruthers role of
also very good
from Alias.
Yeah, that sounds like
Yeah,
Alias.
playing him and saying, like, you really going to just steal that woman's money? And it's and he sort of becomes his conscience through the whole thing, and then he goes to another town and he runs into Cliff Curtis.
Yeah.
Cliff Curtis, who's a great character actor, is in this, and
Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah, from Hobbs and Shaw's Cliff Curtis. He meets he runs into him, and apparently his character has that same, only maybe just a lower res version of The Shining.
Got a little bit of shine to him, right?
They don't say it out loud.
Yeah.
But there's a whole thing where he knows people are good and that type of thing. So he knows that Danny Torrance is good, and so he helps him get this place in this apartment, and then they become best friends. There's a whole 8 years that go by at this point too, where
this is probably just me being dumb, but that was a weird thing for me where I'm like, 8 years have passed and they still fucking live. Like you would think at some point they would have just gone and gotten a house together or something. I mean, done something, because they've been working this whole time. Yeah, you would assume, getting promoted.
Weird. It did seem weird to have the sameness and everything overall this time.
But I'm sure that can happen.
It definitely can happen. Yeah. But he gets set up with a job too. Bruce Greenwood showing up, president of AA, as Barrett whispered in the theater.
Oh, he's awesome.
Danny's able to tell that when he's shaking his wrist that he lost his watch, tells him where the watch was and everything, and he gives him a job over that,
And before he gets the job, he gets an interview in the exact same type of room where Stuart Ullman
I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about that.
I think they did it to every detail. There's the little American flag on the desk.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, there's just everything is exact. The camera angles are the same.
He's in the same spot.
Yeah.
Danny is.
Fuck it, I'm giving it an A.
No, that one, there's a lot of little allusions. Not really little, very, ostentatious allusions to the original there. That one I giggled a little bit because it was but I enjoyed it. I thought that was a cool
it was a great
detail.
touch because it wasn't he wasn't going to the Overlook. It was just something. It felt like it just happened to be.
Yeah,
it was something that I really enjoyed. It wasn't it didn't feel like forced really. But you have that. You have Abra, who as a child is unimpressed with the magician that they have at her birthday party, and says she can do that, and the magician's like, well, good for you. And then her parents walk into the kitchen and see all these spoons hanging off the ceiling and everything, and we're like, oh, okay. And so it's like this multi-layered story and everything. And man, where I'm jumping around, but the part where I was like, okay, I'm in love with this movie, is when Rebecca Ferguson is on top of that trailer and she sort of travels, quote unquote, into what she thinks is Abra's brain across country. There's this surreal sort of flight that just, I was like, oh, I just love this. I want to be there. I want to be flying around like she is. And then she's trying to get into Abra's brain, and Abra's like, no, and fucks her up.
Yeah.
And I was like, God damn, this movie is awesome.
Yeah. So she was ready for her. She had planted a trap for her. It was crazy.
Which sets up why I don't think this whole last 30 minutes makes any sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
If you are that powerful, do you need to have some weakness here if you're going to have to go to the Overlook? And
not only that, but we haven't even talked. They've killed everyone in the group except for Ferguson. So they don't even have to fight anybody else.
Yeah, exactly. There's this whole thing where they have set up where you have Ewan McGregor, you have Cliff Curtis. They shoot all the other guys.
Yeah.
And we have this thing where we don't know if they're human or not. Barely the bullets kill them. Okay, all right. But they're completely wiped out, and only Rebecca Ferguson's left. And then there's a point where he's like, it's almost, this is the part of the script where you're like, how do we put the Overlook in this? How do we, that you can see the mechanics of it, and it just feels wrong. You can hear the clanking of the gears where he's like, I know one place that we can go. And they're fucking in Ohio at that point, I think, or Indiana or Iowa or something.
Yeah,
doesn't matter. And they're in the Midwest somewhere. and they're like, I know a place we can go where people like us are in danger, but people like them are in danger too. I don't know how he figures this out. Yeah, I suppose. And they drive 3,000 fucking miles to Colorado.
He knows, like, okay, so when we haven't talked about this either, like, so at the beginning of the movie, you learn how Danny, when he's a kid, he gets visited by the Scatman, well, not Scatman Crothers, but he gets visited by Halloran, and he tells him, he kind of gives him some tips on, you're just gonna have to figure out a way to block, because the ghost from The Shining, the Overlook has been closed down, but the ghosts are still there. They're still hungry, and they're still going after Danny. They're still trying to get him. But
they're also attacking him in other places, not the Overlook.
I agree, and that's a problem I had, and we talked about that a little last night. But I will say, like, that's where he's getting that idea, because he knows that they like to feed on him. He figured out a way to lock them in these boxes so they don't bother anybody anymore. And he figures that they're super hungry, and that if they would feed on him, they would definitely feed on a person who's got all these, shines.
So fucking take her out to New Hampshire then. Like, take her to New Hampshire in the middle of the woods, open those motherfuckers.
But I also think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the idea, I guess, is that when he's locking them up in these row of coffins that are in the maze, that's supposed to be all the way out there and not in his head or whatever it is. That's a part that I don't quite understand, but the point is, they're in goddamn Florida when he closes the door and the old woman's in the bathtub, and she's just sitting there, and something happens, we don't know, and then that's how he locks them into this thing, and then all right, well, now we got to go to the Overlook, because that's where the ghosts really are.
Yeah, and
they're hungry.
And my other reasoning for this, that it didn't bother me that much, was because I also, like, there's a whole bit in this movie where Danny doesn't want to help Abra. He just tells her, just quit, just forget about all this, just don't worry about it, just go home, close your mind off, figure out a way to stop attracting these people. And then eventually, and he struggles with this, and then eventually, Halloran comes back and visits him and is like, you've got to help her just like I helped you. Mm-hmm. And so that's what, but I don't think, but even though Danny wants to help her, he's not like, he's not like a ghost hunter, I don't know that he knows anything else to do. I think, because I think he realizes after he does it, that he's like, oh fuck, this was a mistake, because then they come after him immediately.
No, here's the other part of this, and I briefly mentioned it a minute ago, is just that she has been shown, Abra has been shown to be so powerful that she's twice in this movie, she beats her ass like over the astral plane, and so how in the world? She's knocked her physically back.
Yeah.
Like she's on the trailer, and I guess her body or whatever comes back and crashes into her astral body, crashes into her real body, and she falls off the damn trailer. I don't understand how you're that strong, and you need to go to the Overlook to get ghosts to crawl all over you.
I agree.
That it may be explained in the movie and I just missed it or something. Maybe that's what they were going for. I don't know. But it seemed like to me you set up this awesome character who can't just go ahead and do her awesome fucking shit.
No, I agree with that. I'm just talking about why Danny would make that decision, not her. I totally agree with that. And I think one of my problems with this movie is kind of like we were talking about with Terminator, where you had these really strong female characters, but then you got to bring Schwarzenegger in to help them out. It's kind of like that here, where it's like, in the grand scheme of things, I don't know. She doesn't really need Danny, other than he's an adult that's been through this, but he's nowhere near as strong as she is.
Yeah, there is one part where she needs him. Yeah, and that's where she's been snuck up upon during the attack, and the crow guy gets captures her during that, and then straps her down and stuck her with something where she couldn't do her thing.
He just says it's a cocktail of something. And he just says, I've given you the most I've ever given anybody, which that's kind of one of those things. I'm like, how did you know how much to dose her?
Yeah.
You could have killed her. Yeah. But that's also kind of Danny's fault that she gets captured.
Yeah. That's another thing that
her dad gets murdered.
I know. That's another thing that it feels like they could have. I know it's I know you're laughing and you don't think it's funny.
No, I don't at all.
But it is funny how they just didn't have a real plan at all.
No.
Like they just like, that's something that they could have put her in like all sorts of places to do this and like protected her and her family, but like, oh, well,
yeah,
you know.
they could have put her like in like a bank vault. I mean, they could have put her in like a cave. I mean, they could have put her in. So yeah, you're right. They could have had her with them. I mean, there's so many things they could have done that, yeah, it was weird. I mean, I can see why they just assumed. I guess they just assumed everybody would come to that spot. So I mean, that's another thing. You get the impression that Crow figured it out. But if he knew that, then why even send them?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they have all just gone to the house? I mean, none of that part makes sense.
Yeah.
And that was a scene. That was a scene I both really liked, and then kind of was like, at the end of it, like the result.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing where we get from Mike Flanagan is that it's very well shot, just beautiful to look at. Looks like everybody is on board. The acting is great and everything. I actually did not like that whole gun scene just because
I didn't either.
It was not well done at all. Action wise,
Yes.
it was awful.
Yes.
There was a point where, so they're being led and they're going into the woods where all their trailers are, and then suddenly from somewhere, Ewan McGregor and Cliff Curtis are shooting at them, and there's never a spot where we see everybody in frame where we're like, it's just kind of like people shooting off screen. And another, and then somebody shoots, and then the camera, it cuts to somebody just getting hit, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, from an action perspective, you're absolutely right. From a conceptual perspective, this scene didn't make any sense to me. Like, Dan and Billy are like expert marksmen with these fucking deer rifles, even though dude seriously said, like, I haven't been hunting since I was like 15 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And they've got unlimited ammo, of course. The monsters, the undead monsters, have fucking pistols that they're firing. Even like I mean, nothing about this movie before or after indicates that we need to solve this with firearms. It's fucking like spiritual planes and like psychic energy and shit like that. And all of a sudden, it's like fucking Public Enemies or something like that. Where they're
Red Dead Redemptioning it.
I think I just liked the whole like the trap itself. I just found kind of interesting and fun. And then the girl going up to her and trying to seduce her and all that kind of stuff. And I liked all that. Yeah, and the shooting and stuff, whatever. But and plus, we don't know enough about these. Maybe if you've read the book, you know more about these creatures. But like you said, we don't know enough about them. Like how did they know guns would work?
They're fucking strapped, is what they are.
Oh yeah,
and they had a bunch of guns too. Like how were Cliff Curtis and Ewan McGregor not hit once? That's kind of one of those weird things too. But like, are they like? Because my impression from this movie is that they are very, very they are people that figured out at some point in their life that they could take this shine from these kids and people. And then that would give them like immortality, or it would give them a longer life. Because they were saying like that one character, like I guess the oldest character, like he had been in the gladiator rings. And, they were saying stuff like that.
Well, when he dies, which is an awesome scene.
It is.
You can actually feel hell coming on him.
Yeah.
When she goes through the whole gamut of like you drank from princes and you drank from kings and you did this and you did that, and like, damn, that motherfucker's old.
Yeah. And the effects are really, really effective.
Yes.
As like he sinks into like a skeleton and then back up to his like fleshy bits and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was really cool.
Fleshy bits.
Yeah. There's a lot of cool scenes in this movie.
A lot of cool.
I regardless of what my grade is, I mean, but I think in the end, I think it's just, I mean, we haven't even gotten to the ending, which I guess we will, but I mean, like I said, I just think it's a very like solid movie throughout, but it definitely has issues. It's just, it could have probably been a great movie, like you guys were saying, and I think it just kind of ends up being a good movie, which I guess is a little disappointing, but at the same time, but it's still a good movie.
I did wonder, by the way, because we're getting into the actual ending part where they mind trick Rose the Hat into being in the maze and wandering around chasing after Abra and everything. And then Abra proceeds to go around like slicing her like tendons or ankles or something like that. and then she figures out, oh, this isn't real, and then comes back out of it. I didn't know what the end game there was.
No.
Because there's, were you going to try to keep her there the whole time? Were you trying to lead her into one of the coffins? Maybe, I don't know.
The box opens up behind her, so that was my guess. But then she's pretty human. I mean, she's not a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really know exactly how that worked, because she would still that would be I guess her corporal self or her dream state. But where would her real body be?
Yeah, there's this thing in movies where they don't want to tell you what the plan is because they want to constantly surprise you with things. But a lot of times it's better just to know what the plan is.
Yeah.
And in this case, that would have been a good thing. If you're trying to knock her into a coffin, I mean, we can kind of get that from but we don't know. We don't know how that works. Nobody says
why.
Yeah,
right? Nobody
says this is why, this is how we're going to do this, and this is why. And there's no reason to keep that from the audience in this.
There's not. What bothers me most about this last bit at the Overlook, and I was actually looking forward to this whole thing because I'm a Shining nerd, and I would love to see all that stuff come to life, just like what you were enjoying, Jonathan. But you can tell they're just trying to get specific shots. They want a shot of her in the maze. They want a shot of her coming up the stairs in the Colorado lounge. They want a shot of Danny with the axe. They want a shot in the gold room. They want all these, they want a shot of him limping around with the axe. And it's you don't have to recreate all this stuff, the blood in the elevator and stuff like that. Is that really necessary?
By the way, shout out to Henry Thomas playing Jack Nicholson in this.
Yeah, exactly. And boy, that almost took me out of the movie. But that scene is so fucking good.
Yeah.
That's the only scene of those recreations that has any heart.
You're talking about the bar, right?
Yeah, the bar. That has any heart, that has any real influence over the character and the plot and all that stuff. The rest is just hey, look at that, we got it in the maze. Hey, look at that, he's carrying the axe.
And I also think it's weird, consistently from The Shining, how Jack is now Lloyd instead of, why isn't he maybe somebody who was the
Grady was Grady.
Why what yeah
Grady still had the same thing. In fact, that's how he recognized him in the bathroom.
So I don't understand why he just can't just be Jack. And
or if you want to have Lloyd there and speak Jack through him or something like that, there's just so many ways that literally did almost take me out of the movie.
But that was so weird. They shoot him in profile at first, and I was like, that looks like Henry Thomas, but I can't be. It's not Henry Thomas. That's not fucking Henry. In fact, I got out of the movie and I was like, that wasn't fucking Henry Thomas. And then Dave goes, "Hey, shout out to Henry Thomas." Dave Thomas.
Yeah, Dave Thomas, founder of Wendy's.
Exactly. He's like, shout out to Henry Thomas there. I was like, oh fuck. I thought that might be him, but I didn't think it really was him.
And I will say, I'm with you. I loved the bar scene. I loved everything about that scene. It was well written. It was very well acted. And they showed just enough of Thomas to where it wasn't distracting. Like you said, it was kind of almost just more from a side and everything. And they did show a couple from the front, but it was still pretty good. I did not like, however, him walking through the hallway with the axe.
Yeah.
Henry Thomas. They should have just left that out. And that didn't need to be there. That scene didn't need to be there at all.
Was that Henry Thomas or was that Ewan McGregor?
Well, no, Ewan McGregor has the axe at one point too when he's going after her, but this is when Ewan McGregor is trying to get away from some stuff.
Yeah.
And they actually show Henry Thomas as Jack Nicholson in the hallway with the axe. It's supposed to be a recreation of that scene.
Yeah.
I don't need that.
And I think just having I did kind of like Ewan McGregor looking through the door. I thought that scene was. I know what you're saying. It's supposed to just be
here's my
looky.
No. I see what you're saying, and actually, that would have been fairly powerful had we not just done the Sins video. Where when he leaves, he has clearly knocked down both of the fucking panels in that fucking door.
There, I could sense Barrett over on the left side. I could sense him. He was like,
"That's true."
He's like, "Oh my god, the two panels aren't out."
I mean, why is it you've recreated every little detail? Why would you not have
Fair
that
enough.
in there?
Fair enough, Sins writer. No, I'm just kidding. I I just really liked, I mean, I think regardless, it was kind of like, this kind of felt like Exorcist 3, where I'm sure they were always intending to have the hotel, but, you know, the original cut of Exorcist 3, when William Peter Blatty shot it and turned it into the studio, there was no exorcism in it. And they were just like, yeah, fuck you. We're doing an exorcism. I cannot imagine they would have done this movie.
Fuck you, we're doing it.
Yeah, pretty much. I cannot imagine they would have done this movie without having the hotel in it. I mean, and whether or not it makes sense, you know, the way they tell the story, it's just one of those things that's going to happen. And so maybe I had just like kind of just realized, well, I mean, we're going to see it, and that's where the final scene's going to be.
I feel like they could have done that way more naturally if they wanted to.
They probably could have. Oh, for sure.
But even if they don't, I don't really like what they did with whatever they did. So.
But when it hits the lake. And the score, which you hear the score at the very beginning of the movie, and then you don't hear it again. I didn't even mind hearing the score because I love that score so much.
Yeah.
You put that fucking score like in Like a Boss. I'm good with it, which would be awesome.
Yeah.
But you see the shot of the lake and the little tree island or whatever, and then it starts going with them up the road, and I'm like. I mean, I was like, yeah, I get this is totally just a recreation, but it was working. And then when you see the hotel, and then like when you see him. I'll just talk about it here. When you see him go like, I want you to stay in the car. And she's like, well, why do you have to go in? He's like, I got to turn it back on. And I liked that. I was like, yes. And then you see like the hotel and he goes in and everything starts lighting up. And I was really getting into it. I do think it falls apart after that. So I'm kind of with you guys there. I just think I liked it a little more because clearly you guys didn't like it much at all.
No.
Yeah.
I actually got a little bit of chills when I first saw the hotel. The shot of them going up the road and everything, from what I understand, reading about it last night, is actually from the original film.
Oh, okay.
They just darkened it.
Oh.
It's the original Kubrick shot.
Interesting.
And it's funny because I could tell the difference in the big wheel scene. I could tell a marked difference.
Yeah, for sure.
On that one, I was like, man, that looks
and even
perfect.
Like, the big wheel's different, right? Like it's like
the speed at which he's going over is different. I mean, it's like, and you can hear a little bit more sound in the big wheel itself as he's turning those things. You can hear that.
Yeah.
You know,
and I did like the final confrontation with Rebecca Ferguson, which I do think is over too quickly. That was a problem I had, but I did really like his comment about the way McGregor delivers the line about, you know, and they're really hungry or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden you see them all just standing there, and she realizes what's going to happen.
Yeah,
that was pretty terrifying. I mean, not terrifying, but it was cool.
Yeah.
But
no, I liked the idea of something like that happening, but I just didn't like how they executed it.
Then right after that, they're just like, you know, Danny, and then he's like kind of looking like almost surprised. I'm like, what the fuck did you think they were gonna do after they were done with her?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then he even makes a comment to Abra. He's like, yeah, the whole time, I mean, I wanted you to run. So then you're like, oh, so you knew you were going to die, or you knew this was going to happen. And well, yeah, he does die. You knew you were going to die. But like, what did you expect?
Well, that's another thing.
What did you expect to happen to her?
That's another thing in that movie I didn't understand. There was a point where he's like half dead and then like half not.
Yeah.
What's going on?
They're possessed. They possess him. I guess they want to keep him there, but then they attacked him originally. So, like, what was the end game there?
Yeah, and then he's just kind of like able to fight it, I guess, with his shining.
Yeah, because they don't do that to Jack. They just basically talk Jack into doing everything for them. Like they're not literally like in him. Whereas in this scenario, it looked like they all went in his body.
Yeah,
and that's why his eye was all fucked up, and you know,
his eye's all fucked up.
Yeah,
and then the single most memorable thought that I had was when she's watching the Overlook burn. I'm like, well, King got his way. They got to burn down the Overlook. That was the big famous controversy with Kubrick and King. Was his version ended with somebody freezing to death. My version ended with the hotel burning.
Yeah,
down.
it's like I brought the heat, Kubrick brought the cold,
Yeah,
or whatever
and
he
so,
said. Yeah.
So you could tell King and Flanagan probably sitting there in the screening room watching this thing, and King's like, "Yeah, baby, finally, fucking burn that bitch."
I mean, he really likes it. Like, he's really happy about it. But, I mean, he seems to always be happy about his stuff. And I don't blame him. He should be tweeting positive things about all this shit because he's making a lot of money off of this stuff. So I don't blame him. And I love King. So, but yeah, no, I don't know. It's weird because I feel like I still like this movie less than you guys, but I definitely liked the ending more.
No, yeah, I think your overall opinion was down. Ours was a big roller coaster. I think.
I just really, really enjoyed it. I felt like it was one of those things where for the first 2 hours, I was like, God, there might be some things here and there that I might not like, but I can forgive a lot of that. That's where you have a good movie is like things that happen, you forgive some of the bad things that happen, But then, you watch those movies where it's like nothing but bad is happening. You're like, I can't get on board with any of this. This one was just solid throughout. And if you didn't like something, it was like,
And I like that you're bringing up how unsafe it is. And I didn't even think about that until we started talking about it. But I definitely dig that about this movie because especially with studio horror. And especially, I really don't know what the budget for this was, but I assume it was more than most horror movies, more than, non-studio horror movies. A lot of the times, like you've said this in the past, Chris, where stuff looks too clean, it looks too bright, so that kind of takes away from the horror, but they were able to make it work here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say this is scary, but nothing really scares me anymore. But for someone if someone out there that doesn't watch a lot of horror movies, I could totally see this scaring them.
Yeah.
And it is creepy, and it is dark. It's not scared to be dark, but it also doesn't. It's not too dark. Like I'm not like, you should have pulled back a little bit. But yeah, no, I just there was a lot of care that went into this movie, and I 100% respect that, and really looking forward to seeing what Flanagan does next.
Yeah, he's got what's that next one that he's on?
Well, they're doing a sequel series to The Haunting of Hill House. Well, not sequel series. They're doing another haunted house. It's The Haunting of Bly Manor. He's also got another TV show I saw that he's working on.
He's got this Midnight Mass.
Yeah, that's another it's like a 7 episodes series. I don't know if that's Netflix or not. It probably is. But
yeah, I loved the Haunting of Hill House on Netflix. I really enjoyed watching that. Thought that was very well done. I think for the most part, this movie is well done. Obviously, we're not giving it like C's and D's.
No. And this is definitely I'd have to think about it, but I really, really do like Hush. If you guys haven't seen Hush, and it's on Netflix. High recommend. It's a really well crafted cat and mouse home invasion type thriller.
That's the Buffy episode where nobody talks, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what he just redoes that with his wife.
You know who plays? You know this episode that I'm talking about? Where it's dialogue free. It's where
I don't think I saw that.
One of the best episodes, really. But
Tara
it's in a bad season.
Was this what season?
Season 4.
That's I think I'd seen 3 seasons. And
this is where there's there's the G.I. Joe guys at the college. Riley.
Well, yeah, but the whole thing is these entities, these ghost-like characters called the Gentlemen, take everybody's voice in Sunnydale. And the funny thing was, it's a great episode, but I didn't realize the main guy was played by Doug Jones.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
And of course, he's in heavy makeup.
Yeah.
I didn't know who he was at the time, but I have heard that. I have heard that since. No, that's an outstanding episode. Yeah. But the movie is different than that. But this might be his best movie. I mean, overall. It's better than it's better than Ouija or Resident Evil.
Yeah, it's definitely better than Oculus.
I actually kind of dig Oculus.
Oh God,
I don't think it's great.
I don't like any movie involving mirrors. Let's just put it that way. Mirrors, Oculus, they both suck.
That's probably as far as haunted mirror movies go. Oculus is the queen bee.
Yeah, I guess so.
The one thing about Oculus, it has a really really interesting ending. I think that's the thing that got me with that movie. But yeah, it's probably I've only seen it the one time. If I went back and watched it, I'd probably be like, "Oh, this is garbage."
Fuck Oculus. That's what you should get out of this review today.
Fuck Oculus. Fuck Dave.
Yeah. Well, I mean that goes without saying.
Poor Dave.
Yeah, I know.
He had to go to work early, couldn't be here, and now we're just shitting all over.
Yeah, that's right. All right, well, if you want to talk about some Dr. Sleep, go to SinCast presented by Cinemasins on Facebook. Cinemasins Twitter, Music Video Sins Twitter. We're on SoundCloud. We have a Discord. If you're not in Discord, you can go to either the Reddit page and find a link there, or you can go to Facebook and private message me, and I will give you a link there. Jonathan, you have some stuff?
I am at SamLoomis13 on Twitter, and I am also on a weekly podcast with Aaron Dicer and Danae Hughes, where we go behind the sins. And the show's actually called Behind the Sins.
There you go.
There you go.
That worked out well.
And but it's mostly just us. It's mostly just us. Well, it's mostly just Aaron talking about weird sexual stuff. So it's fun.
Yeah.
Come listen to us.
That'll do it for this mini-pod
Mini-pod.
of Dr. Sleep. It's Chris Atkins and Barrett Scher and Jonathan Watkins. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com. It was the Alejandro song.
Yeah?
Remember that one?
I do.
They really scraped the bottom of the barrel on that album to get hits out, to get singles out.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about, like, it's the Fame. I want to look it up real quick. I think she had 7 singles from that album.
Was that the Born This Way album?
No, that was Born This Way. That was the second album.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant. But I thought that's what Alejandro was on. It's on, Alejandro was on the first album?
I think it's on the first one. Because it was Judas and Alejandro were like the last ones. Just Dance,
so it
Love
was like,
Game.
It was like Thriller.
Paparazzi, Poker Face. First 4 tracks on the album were like #1 hits.
So it is like Thriller.
Oh man, you know what? I think are you right? Oh no, it's the Fame Monster was the reissue of the Fame. And that had all the other shit on
Well, just fuck me.
Telephone.
Was that the one with Beyonce?
And Beautiful Dirty Rich, which wasn't a huge
Was
hit.
Telephone with Beyonce?
Yeah. What was Paparazzi on then? Paparazzi was on the Fame.
I don't know. I just don't know albums anymore because it's just not.
Yeah, Paparazzi was on the Fame. So yeah, there was 8 hits off of those first really one album. That's crazy. What was Judas on though? You remember that Judas song? The Judas song sucked.
No, I don't remember that.
Judah.
I really just kind of started. Liking
exactly
her
like that.
in the last couple of years. I wasn't really a fan of hers for quite a while. I mean, I knew she was talented, but I just until I had a daughter that started listening to her stuff a lot, I just wasn't really. It wasn't in my ear.
What was Judas on?
Speaking of which, I listened to OPP this morning on the way over here.
Yeah,
and
you know me.
They should have really rethought Dave Drop a Load on him.
Ooh.
Because that's like at the very beginning where they're like,
Yeah, that's
Army with Harmony, and then they go, Dave, drop a load on him.
You know, Born This Way was derided, I think. Because Born This Way was Express Yourself. But then, and it had that Judas song, which is terrible.
I mean, Born This Way really isn't Express Yourself, but it's
it is.
She's very well, and she's very Madonna. Like she's just so. I mean, you put those two things together. That was actually maybe one of the last good Weird Al parodies.
Oh, that was a great Weird Al parody.
Yeah.
It also had You and I, which is a great song. That's that big old like banger.
Have you heard the Weird Al parody for Royals though, where it was Foil?
Yeah,
that's actually quite funny.
Yeah,
I mean, you almost have to watch the video for it to be funny because he starts, when he gets into the whole like conspiracy theory part of it.
Yeah, that's
Patton Oswalt's in there.
I haven't seen that.
Or as I like to call him, Max the dog.
Edge of Glory,
or not Louis C.K.
Edge of Glory was a good song, but that was a Springsteen ripoff.
Yeah, Edge of Glory's.
In fact, it actually had the saxophonist that died, the E Street Band saxophonist on it. Who was it? Clarence Clemens. Yeah. I got ruled. Anyway, we're talking about Dr. Sleep.
No, I beg to differ. We're talking about Lady Gaga today.
thought we were doing a
Judah.
This is a mini pod for the Like a Boss trailer.
Yeah, we're gonna have 30 minutes dedicated to that Star Is Born song.